This is the Cameron Journal Podcast. It's a place where we talk about important things. It's a place where we bring a little slice of the news to you. It's a place where we do important things, have important conversations. It's also things that I like to talk about. My name is Cameron Cowan, and this is the Cameron Journal Podcast. On the Cameron Journal Podcast, I am happy to welcome someone very unique because we're going to talk about a very unique sort of niche thing. Today we're talking with Charles Reed. He is the kind of founder of Get Payroll. And he is also an accountant and has been working on payroll and all those sorts of issues for a long time. So this is an interview that's really for my business listeners who, when they hear the words employees and payroll, want to start slitting their wrists and throats possibly at the same time. Graphic, but true, because that's how I feel about it as somebody who needs to start hiring people here soon. So let's hope that we can have our fears allayed and feel better about things and move forward from there. So welcome, Charles, to the Cameron Journal Podcast. How are you?
Very much for having me.
Excellent. Well, let's dive right in. Why don't you give us some background about yourself and your company and get us up to speed?
Midwestern boy. I was raised in Iowa. After high school, I joined the States Marine Corps for 4 years. Was stationed overseas. Was stationed in Kansas City. Met and married my wife. She had 5 kids when I married her. I claim insanity, but we were married for 45 years before she passed. So it worked. After the military, I found that my military experience wasn't valued in the business world. Then, just like now, they didn't understand what military brought to the table. So I decided after a couple of years to go to college, got my BBA, my MBA, sat for and passed my CPA exam while I was still in graduate school. Went to work for Texas companies, small companies, startups, turnarounds, lots of great experience. Realized in my early 40s I was never going to run a major corporation. I didn't have the political skills. I was unwilling to stab people in the back and toss them off the ladder. So I decided to start my own business. So Ruth and I started our own business in 91, accounting, mobile accounting service, along with a payroll sideline. Grew it for a number of years. Ruth retired, sold off the accounting practice to my partner that I'd taken on, and converted to strictly payroll company. Well, that was about 10, 12 years ago. So we provide payroll services to small and medium-sized businesses around the country.
No, that's an incredibly valuable service. Now that's fascinating. My goodness, what a journey. All right. So let's get into this. As I said in the introduction, when most small business owners like me hear the words payroll, we start screaming. If you are a small business solopreneur or a service provider who's expanding and getting to the place where you're ready to hire some people, payroll's the hardest part of that whole process. What's your recommendation? Help us. What do we do?
Sure. Off, make sure you choose your entity that's the best tax entity for you. And it's going to matter how you pay payroll once you've chosen that entity. But beyond that, don't pay them in cash. Don't pay them under the table. Don't pay them around the corner. Do it right. Your best bet is to hire a service bureau from day one because they'll get you set up properly with the feds and with the states. And maybe with your local, depending upon where you're at, you're going to need numbers to deal with the IRS. You're going to need numbers to deal with the state. You're going to deal with the state revenue department, the state unemployment department, and possibly a local revenue department. You're going to have to know what forms you need to file, when you need to deposit, what you need to deposit, what you need to report, annual reports, quarterly reports, monthly reports, all kinds of things that you just don't know. Now, my recent book, the Payroll book, A Guide for Small Business Startup, goes into a lot of it, and that's a good place to start. But I don't recommend ever doing payroll yourself until you get to about 300 or 400 people, and then you hire people like me to do it internally. Before that, just outsource it. I always did long before I started my own company because it just makes no sense. It's a very complex and changing environment. And your time as an entrepreneur, small business owner, is much better spent working on your business than doing clerical and complicated legal work that you have to spend years learning how to do perfectly when you can outsource it for a pittance. Outsourcing makes all the sense in the world. I don't mow my own lawn. I don't make my own clothes. I don't wash my own car anymore. I outsource all that because my time's worth something, as is a small businessman, which I am, or a solo entrepreneur, or any entrepreneur. Your time is so valuable and so limited. Why waste it?
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, a couple kind of interesting. I agree with you, by the way. I used to do marketing and business consulting, and I always, when people would say, "Oh, I'm going to take on a couple employees," blah, 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 I'm like, "Great, and we're going to hire ADP immediately. That's our next phone call, is to hire someone to deal with this because it's far too complicated for any of us to deal with." I'm like, I barely passed high school math. I should not go anywhere near a payroll thing. Um, and so I wanted to kind of find out. You said something very interesting in your bio that you figured out you were never going to run a major corporation because you couldn't deal with the politics. I've had a very similar experience in like all employment situations, which is why I do this. How did you come to that conclusion?
I'd worked for a number of companies. My last company was J.C. Penney's, and my streak of independence and my streak of not wanting to comply with the rules, the fact that I'm nonconformist, I just don't fit a corporate structure, a large corporate structure that, you're a cog in the wheel. When I went to work for TI, and one of the reasons I left is nothing I did made a difference. Even if I suggested something, by the time it got to the top, it was somebody else's plan and suggestion. I was just one of thousands out there, and TI was an engineering company. They could have cared less about accountants. And so it just, if you want to make a difference in the world, if you want to be a nonconformist, if you want to be your own person, corporate world is not the place to do it. You've got to conform to the societal norms and the business culture within that company, or you're not going to get ahead. And I was unwilling to do that, and unwilling to do the kinds of dirty work that you're expected to do in a corporation. I wouldn't treat people that way. So I started my own business, and I've got a good group of people that work with me, a good group of employees, partners, whatever you want to call them, that I value highly. And I think they value me. And my job as CEO is to make their job easier and more efficient so they can better serve my clients, their clients, our clients, in a way that makes us all money and moves us ahead and makes us a bigger and more successful company.
I'm glad you said that because I talk a lot about containers of success. And I talk a lot about enabling people to do their best thing and be able to, which ultimately is good for them, good for the business, all this type of thing. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So another kind of interesting question, because your bio says you were in the Marines in the Vietnam War. How has your military service helped you as an entrepreneur?
It's helped me a lot. One of the rules in the Marine Corps, a couple of them. First of all, is adapt and overcome. So, regardless of what happens, the laws change, technology changes, society changes, you adapt and you overcome. That's just the Marine Corps way. You just do it. It's not a choice, you just do it. But one of the leadership skills they teach in the Marine Corps is mission, min, self. Mission comes first. You accomplish the mission, whatever it takes. And now our mission is to provide perfect payroll to our clients on a timely basis. So, whatever it takes to do that, we just do. We bend over backwards to make sure that that happens. Next, you take care of your men. You take care of your people. You treat them right. You keep them happy. You give them goals. You give them aspirations. You give them money. You give them praise. You give them what they need to be successful. That's your second job. And then only after that's done do you take care of yourself. This was brought home to me very much. One instance, I was in guerrilla warfare school in northern Okinawa prior to Vietnam. And we'd been out in the field for a week without showers or hot food, existing on sea rations, and baby wipes weren't really a thing at that point in time. So we finally got a hot meal sent out to us. And the lieutenant, young guy, not much older than us, in fact, not older than some of the sergeants, made sure that every one of us got our hot meal before he got his. So his men came before he did. And that's important. I've seen many businesses destroyed by ego, literally just destroyed by the owner's ego. I had one boss who would take us all outside about once a year and point out the name on the building was his. It was actually his father's. He inherited the business. And he'd said, if we didn't like the fact that it was his company, we didn't need to come back inside. Went bankrupt.
Oh, that level of hubris in that statement is just tremendous. Wow.
Very much so. And that's just one example. Shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in three generations is a truism for a reason. It happens, and it's just ego. I want to write another book, and I've already got the title picked out and half the chapters laid out, and it's called "Park Your Ego at the Door: A Guide to Business Success."
Yeah, no, I've had quite a few conversations about leadership going forward. And literally, I think if you talk to anybody in the industry about that, that's one of the things that like people mention, that you have to take care of, people and really kind of put yourself to one side, which I it's funny because I don't find that attitude very often, even in academia. I had a situation where I went to another person in academia and I said, "Oh, I'm not feeling supported. I'm not feeling like being given the tools for success." And he told me to basically get the hell out. And I said, in all my years, if any of my clients ever came to me and said, I don't feel like I'm being supported, my first move is to drop everything and ask one question: what do you need from me to get this done? Because now that's all that matters. That's the conversation.
Yes.
Like that's it. That's the whole game. Drop everything. That's all that matters now. And like I don't understand people that don't get that at a very fundamental level. Like, so where's the gap, do you think? Like, why does something that, in my mind, seems incredibly common sense seem to fly over a lot of heads?
I wish if I had the answer to that, if I could really codify that, I'd be a very, very rich man. I don't understand people that do that, that let their ego get in the way to their own self destruction. It's just incredible the damage people will do. But it's a lot of it. I think is the fact that there's people that feel they're superior to others. I mean, you see it. Obviously, racism is people that feel they're superior for no good reason. Uh, I learned a long time ago. I don't need to be the smartest person in the room, and I'm probably not. I need to learn how to hire the smartest person in the room. Okay. But if I think I'm better than my employees, that's a problem. I can't do my business without my people. I can't do everything. It's physically impossible for me to do everything. So they are critical to my success, and I'm critical to theirs. And we need to work together to be successful. And if you think you're better than the people that work for you or work with you or that you work for, you're wrong and you're an idiot.
No, no, I quite agree. I think there's a lot of hubris within all of that. That's very interesting. While we're on the subject of labor and payroll and all that type of thing, Great Resignation. How has the Great Resignation affected you and your clients? There's been a great reshuffling of the office workers of America. How has it affected your business and their businesses, and what have you seen out there?
Well, it hasn't affected my business at all. Zero. So internally, we
Yeah.
haven't lost anybody in years. And as far as I know, nobody's planning on going anywhere soon. Uh, though I will say this, my first response is to somebody that says, Charles, I've gotten a better job, is to stick out my hand and say congratulations, because everybody needs to do what they think is best for themselves. I'm never going to tell anybody not to take what they think is a better job. And if they've done a good job for me, I'll say if it doesn't work out, call me. And I've done that. I've rehired people upon occasion because they've gone elsewhere and found it was a mistake. Now, obviously, our clients tend to be small businesses, and small businesses are not getting the same kind of resignations as major companies are. Because they're tighter, there's more camaraderie, there's more loyalty. Um, I think in small business than there is in something like J.C. Penney's or General Motors, where the president doesn't know your name and doesn't know you exist. In small businesses, and our target market is 50 employees and under. The president knows everybody. The owner knows everybody. And so there's a lot more camaraderie and sense of purpose in that. And I think that's where the great resignation has come in, is people don't see the purpose in what they're doing. So why bother? Find something else. It's only money. It doesn't matter. When you're a small business, you tend to get involved more in the success of the business, I think. And I like that.
No, I agree. I've spent most of my life working with small and medium sized businesses under 50 employees. And yeah, I've been in both situations where it's like, everybody knows other. In one case, we all worked in the same room, one giant room, like, sort of thing. Um, and so, yeah, so it was very kind of, flat sort of leadership. We all kind of get together and solve problems and plot and plan and all that type of thing. And so I think you ended up being more invested because you felt like you were a part of things. There was a sense of mission and vision, that just doesn't quite translate at scale, despite the best efforts of some people.
And some companies try, though I've been a critic of American business management for the 50 years I've been around it, 50 plus years. Most of it's terrible. But yeah, small businesses, as you say, you develop a sense of mission and it's shared. And that's critical, I think, to small business success. I think it's critical to business success, period. It's just, I think small business does it much better than major businesses do.
Yes. And I think Also, that's why the small businesses employ the vast majority of people,
Yes.
as opposed to our big corporate big corporate players. You said you've been a critic of American business management. What do you think is the worst crime?
Ego,
Hmm.
hubris. I really think that is critical, a critical fault. Um, they people think they're smarter than the people that work for them, and they treat them that way. And people don't like to be treated that way. Dr. George Washington Crane, who was a columnist years ago, uh, both a doctor and a lawyer, very talented man. One of his favorite sayings was, in treating people, if you will just imagine that tattooed on their chest is the phrase, I am important, and treat them that way, life will be much easier for you if you treat people like they think they are, because they think they're important. And if you treat them that way, they'll respond appropriately.
No, no, I think that is quite interesting. Yeah, you mentioned that your small business clients have not been having as much turnover, and I found that was very interesting. So, besides maybe shared mission and all this type of thing, why do you think the big companies have had such a hard time keeping people, and why people are shuffling around like cards?
Well, at the moment, of course, there's all kinds of opportunities. You can find a job, tomorrow, if not today. Everybody is in crying need, including small businesses, for additional bodies, additional people. I say bodies, and that's a poor term because you want to hire the right people. I like Warren Buffett's, we hire good people, we don't hire jerks.
Yes.
So that's important. And so, unless you're offering the people something more than just money, they can get money anywhere. They can probably go make more money tomorrow. So if that's the only reason they're working for you is the paycheck, they've got lots of options. They don't need you, not today. Maybe in a year from now, it'll change. But at the moment, they don't need your paycheck. There's lots of people offering them paychecks if they have any kind of talent or any kind of willingness to work. So if all you're offering is a paycheck, you're not offering anything. They can get that anywhere.
It's funny you mentioned that because one of the stories I kind of always tell about these conversations, I knew this guy he was a coder and he specialized in, this is esoteric, municipal billing systems. That's what his company did. And he created the code to keep them running because they're all really old and incredibly antiquated from the 80s and 90s. And so he has this kind of very niche thing. And he was talking about like, yeah, he gets headhunted a lot because he has this kind of very particular set of skills and this very particular set of coding languages that aren't common anymore. And he said, yeah, I get headhunted a lot and I could probably go somewhere else and make more money. But here's the thing, the marginal increase in salary is going to mostly get eaten up by taxes. And he's like, here's the other thing, I'm not going to have the flexibility. He's like, right now, I can leave the office at 3 o'clock, go pick up my kids from school, and keep, because his wife basically invented medical billing and coding. So she works high up at one of those companies. And she's like, I can keep the kids out of my wife's hair for the end of till she gets done with her day. And for him, the reason he stayed and makes about 20K less than he could is for that fact alone. He's like, I have the flexibility to get my kids from school and it makes our family work better. And so he stays on that basis alone. That's the game right there. Like,
but his employer offers him that flexibility, and that's worth the 20K to him. I understand that fully.
yeah. Yeah. And I think when it comes to this, because right now we're having this whole conversation about work from home and hybrid and retention and all this type of thing. I think a lot, especially a lot of the bigger companies have forgot it's little stuff like that, like letting someone go early to work from home so they can pick up their kids from school. That's going to keep your great people around. It's little stuff like that.
It is, and I do understand that in a big company, well, you're letting so and so do that, so I want to do this, and you get complexities, and the rules have to be more precise and more followed in a major company to keep the chaos from happening. In a small company, that chaos is much, much easier to manage.
No, that is certainly true. That is certainly true. But I think that's kind of the missing piece. Like if you let people have a little bit of flexibility around working from home days or a little bit more of a flexible schedule, all this type of thing, that can end up being a huge point of retention without adding any additional labor cost.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. It's those kinds of things that, as your story said, make it worthwhile, because it's, as I said, it's not just the paycheck anymore, because they can get that anywhere. So you have to give them something more, whether it be flexibility, a sense of mission and camaraderie, a sense of family, whatever it is. It has to be more than the paycheck, or they're going to get a better one someplace else tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we're coming to the end here, so now's a great time for you to let us know where we can find you online and where to get the book.
You can find me online at getpayroll.com. For your listeners, Cameron, if they would like a copy of the Payroll book, a guide for small businesses and startups, it's basically 30 years of wisdom distilled down to 95,000 words. If they will go to thepayrollbook.com, the website, thepayrollbook.com, enter the discount code podcast, we will ship your listeners a free copy of the book as long as supply lasts. No shipping, no handling, a free copy. Because if they're interested enough in it that they'll order it, I want them to have it.
That is fantastic, and thank you so much for offering that to listeners of the Cameron Journal podcast. I really appreciate that. That's awesome. We don't get free stuff around here very often. So, all right. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you for coming on the Cameron Journal podcast.
Been my pleasure, sir. Thank you.
That's all for this episode of the Cameron Journal podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Visit us online at CameronJournal.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and I love to talk to my followers and listeners, so please feel free to get us on social media at Cameron Cowan on Twitter, and we'll see you next time on the Cameron Journal podcast.